All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in again today. So, let me ask you a question. Start off with a question. Today, this whole thing is all going to be about stress. Do we know anybody who is stressed out of their mind right now? Maybe going through what might be happening right now. Dealing with COVID, dealing with stress about this, that, or the other thing. Does anybody know anybody like that? Yeah. What do you think that stress is doing to that individual? Do you think it's building their immune system or weakening their immune system? We'll find out. All right, so those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Jacques, starting this Limitless Healing show, and I'm so excited to bring this to you. And today we're going to relate how stress is going to have an impact on the immune system. The reason why it's so darn important to understand this now is because now, more than ever, it's going to be massively important for us to take personal responsibility for our health. Because we have Fauci on one side, or however you say his name on one side. You got Bill Gates dictating things. And at the end of it all, there has been research that has been coming out from, I think it was Washington University. I have the file actually. But it says that the best way to combat COVID is work on our natural flipping immune system. It's rocket science. It's what we've been saying this entire time. And it stresses me out that it took this long for people to come out and understand this. And because I've been saying it the whole time, it doesn't matter, because now Washington University, some hospital, some medical doctors say that your immune system is important. Maybe you should take care of it. More people are going to listen to them, which is crazy. But anyways, so what we're going to go over is some of the top ways you can actually measure your stress response, and not just measure the stress response, but how you can actually address it. There's going to be some tips and tricks throughout this, and as usual, at the end, I'm going to tell you some things that I would recommend personally and what I run on myself to make sure not only am I working on my immune system, but I'm also working on my stress and vice versa. So that stressed out person, is their immune system getting stronger or weaker? So for those of you who are on here, go ahead and put in a comment box. When you're stressed out, does your immune system get stronger or weaker? Go ahead. I'll wait. It's kind of a trick question too. Okay? Now initially, it's beneficial. When you're stressed, you have that cortisol spike, boom, goes up. It actually releases antibodies, right? Because your body's trying to be on attack. It's trying to get after anything that's going to come into your body. But just like we talked about last week, is that if we're pulling long-term stress, what that's going to do is actually cause us to waste our immune system and cause it to crash down and let us be more susceptible to viruses, bacterial infections, yeast infections, parasitic infections, you name it. So at first, beneficial. Remember, our body tries to take care of us. But then when we talk about long term, if we don't get out of that fight or flight state, it will crash our immune system. So how do you think that it actually impacts your immune system? What does it do? That spike in cortisol, it causes us to be stressed out. And then what's going to happen is whether we perceive it or we actually experience it, our body's going to react the same way. Again, it's going to waste our immune system. So what is stress? At the end of the day, what is stress? We already kind of mentioned it. We're going to have our perceived stress, which I think is massively important for right now. And what do I feel like perceived stress is? So stress is something that we think of in our head. We perceive it to be a threat. If our conscious mind, our thinking brain, if our conscious mind attaches a threat onto something, COVID, cancer, heart disease, what is that going to do? Anytime that topic hits us, boom, it's going to create a stress response. If we don't perceive things differently, it's going to keep us in that feedback loop. So that's perceived stress. We have actual physical stress. If I'm going to go outside in the parking lot, I'm going to get hit by a car. That's some stress. That's some physical stress to the body. Okay? And our body can't differentiate between good and bad. That's very important to know. So whether we have a good experience with something or we have a bad experience with something, the same things are released in the body. Me personally, the way I feel about this is usually good stress is quicker to overcome. Cortisol can come back down versus the negative stress. With the negative stress, we tend to add that feedback loop where we just keep that plate spinning and we constantly stay stressed out. So I feel like negative is obviously more negative for the body. It's going to have more negative effects on the body as well. So it's going to be one that we have to make sure we're perceiving as an actual threat. Something I listened to last night, The Power of the Subconscious Mind, when I was driving back and forth from Ohio, is it's up to us. We were only born with two fears in the world. It's the fear of noise and fear of falling. Anything else that we're fearful of is because we've been told to be fearful of it. It's pretty neat when you think about it. If you don't believe me, think about babies' reflexes, startling reflexes. It's true, okay? So when we have these stresses, we actually have the ability to be able to perceive things differently. And all it is just something that's happening in the day. So how do we actually measure stress? So we talked about this last week. You can easily do a stress response or an adrenal test. What's that going to look for? It's going to see what's going on with your cortisol output. If your cortisol goes too high, again, you're going to be in that phase 1 with the DHEA dropping. Phase 2, you're on your way down. Phase 3, you're basically flatlining, going down to a phase 4, which is complete adrenal exhaustion and some other stuff happening. So that is a direct measurement of stress. Now, what that stress is actually doing to our immune system is going to be where my favorite test comes into play. It's my GI map. It's my stool test. So I'm going to pull up. I'm going to kind of migrate down. I've got this whole weird setup going on right now. But for those of you who are curious or are knowledgeable about this stuff, what do you think is my top measurement for your immune system? I want you to toss it into the comment box while I pull up my test here. So I'm going to disappear, but I'm not disappearing, I promise. Told you I'm still here. All right, so we're going to go over this test first, okay? All right, so this test right here, okay? Going through that. All right, coming back. All right, so this test right here, this is a basic just adrenal panel. It's a salivary saliva sample or salivary cortisol DHEA sample with a cortisol awakening response attached into that sample as well. So what does that mean? So when you wake up in the morning, we have the cortisol awakening response. When we wake up, our cortisol is like this. Actually, I'll do it this way since we've been doing this the whole time. So cortisol is down here when we wake up. When we have the cortisol awakening response, we want to shoot up above a 50% increase from where we actually physically woke up at, okay? Now, that's going to be, boom, a direct angle, and it's going to shoot. Now, if we're down here and we just a little bit, under 50% increase, then that is a broken cortisol awakening response. That means you have an HPA axis problem. That's up top. Stress. So there's ways that we can evaluate that. There's ways that we can address that. Okay, now the next thing too that we can talk about is not just that little box where it says percent increase was only 7%. So what do you think? That's a pretty broken response right there. And then we look at the actual cortisol awakening response on this box here. I'm going to pull my little cursor thing over here so I can see this. Okay, and where are we here? Apparently this doesn't work like that. All right, let's just do this then. Okay, so what we're seeing is this guy right here. Okay, so we have this box here. We have within the green, but we can say pretty confidently that's a little bit on the higher end. Okay, higher end, most certainly going to the higher end, and then over on the higher end. Okay, so just kind of breaking this down real quick. When he wakes up in the morning, he has no real cortisol awakening response. It's kind of like, I'm dragging out of bed. I don't have all that much energy, and it's really hard for me to get going. So then as soon as that happens, all of a sudden, he actually shoots up higher. It's kind of, again, a broken response. And then he doesn't really taper down until the end of the day. And even at the end of the day, he's still at the higher range, which means his cortisol is going to be higher before you go to bed. Stress is going to be higher before you go to bed. You're not going to be able to sleep as well. So this is something that's massively important. If you are stressed out, we have to work on that sleep as well, because melatonin release, that natural release of melatonin in the body, works against cortisol. So if melatonin's up, cortisol is going to be down. Cortisol is going to be up, melatonin is going to be down. And it has this back and forth motion that you can have whenever we're talking about those two. So it's very, very, very important. That's one of my tips that I'll get to is make sure you're sleeping, make sure you're in that bed by 10 o'clock at least, so that way you can try to get that perfect sleep rhythm, okay? All right, so this is, again, a measurement in your actual cortisol, all right? Now I'm going to pull this test down, and I'm going to pull my stool test up. Okay, this one's not mine, but this is a stool test nonetheless. So this is like my favorite test in the entire world to run. Okay, the reason why I love this test so flippin' much, okay, try to pull it over here. The reason why I love this test so much is that it gives you so much information whenever it's coming to not just the immune system, but the overall health response that you have going on here. Okay, so let me try to make this a little neater here. There we go. I'm not sure why it's doing that. We're pulling it off to the side here, but either way, okay. So what we're going to look at is going to be this test. You're going to see all the numbers and things that we need to. But what we're seeing is an actual C. diff infection. So this isn't a measurement of the immune system. It's telling you that we have an infection. It means our immune system was compromised and we developed an infection in the gut. This was something that went really undiagnosed, undetected. We were the only ones to be able to detect this. And unfortunately, this person actually has cancer. So we're going to go into what that actually looks like. So again, talking about a weakened immune system, it makes us a perfect host for our bodies to be susceptible to disease. We have an imbalance in our normal healthy bacteria here as well. So again, that's going to be important to understand. Probiotics, gut health, that's going to be a direct representation of how well our immune system is doing. All right, multiple infections. We have a high infection here, 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 and here. So we have staph, strep. We have some enterococcus here as well. We have Pseudomonas, which is another really harsh infection. So multiple bacterial infections going on in this patient. Again, weakened immune system. So I'm getting down to it. I promise I'm getting down to it. Here we go, right here. So for those of you who know me, the number one thing that I'm going to be looking at is going to be your secretory IgA. Secretory IgA. And what does that actually mean? So let me pull this out for a second. All right, so secretory IgA, or SIGA, is a measurement in the immune system, not just in the digestive tract. This is why this is really important. This is why I thought it was absolutely hilarious too when Fauci started saying we might have to wear goggles because we can get viruses in through our eyeballs. When I was like 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks ahead of that, I'm like, I bet this is going to happen next because you have secretory IgA, you have immune responses that take place in the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the throat, all the way down to the exit. So yeah, I mean, technically you can get viruses coming in through the eyes. I mean, you can get viral pink eye too, but at the end of the day, it's going to be very rare that you're going to get anything that actually physically goes into the eye. But the reason that is because that secretory IgA is a response of your immune system throughout the body. Now, due to chronic stress, there's actually research on this, is that if you have a chronic stress response, as cortisol continues to stay up over time, your secretory IgA is going to go down. It's going to plummet. So that chronic stress response is going to throw away all of our antibodies. Like, come on, where's the infection? Where's the infection? All of a sudden, it's going to be like, I'm burnt out. I don't have any more to make. I'm too tired to make it. And you haven't really, it's like the boy who cried wolf. I haven't had to fight anything off right now, so I'm just going to go to sleep right now. Now, that's not physically what happens in the body, but we burn out that stress response. We burn out that immune response due to chronic stress. So, again, with all this craziness going on, most people are in that chronic stress response. It has been long enough that everyone is stressed out of their minds. That's why I'm saying everybody needs to run these tests. But with that secretory IgA going down, that's also the story of the people that have been to the medical doctor, they've been to chiropractors, they've been to other functional medicine practitioners, and then they kill off an infection, and then soon after they get another infection. Like, how did this happen? Well, because your secretory IgA was low this entire time, nobody addressed a stress response, and then what did that do? It left you to be susceptible to infections. It's just how it works. So we want to make sure we buffer it. We want to make sure we boost that secretory IgA back up. It takes time. If there's an infection, we really need to have to go after and boost or eliminate the infection to boost that secretory IgA, because infections will also cause cortisol to raise. So that's another one. It's another threat, is that not just can stress break us down, but these infections can break us down and raise cortisol too, which causes more stress to our adrenal glands. So this is so, I know it's so much information, it's so heady, I know that it's a lot, I completely understand, but this stuff is great because this allows you to know that you have a way to actually physically measure your immune system. You have it in your hands, and I'm going to show you ways to actually work on that response. I know you just asked, how do you build up secretory IgA? Is that easy to build up? It depends. Depends on what caused your secretory IgA to go down in the first place. Now, if you've had an infection for a long period of time, and it just stays there and it just keeps adding more infections onto the boat, well, then your secretory IgA is going to go down. Okay? It's still going to cause a stress response, but it seems like your main cause is going to be because you have infections. What about mold? I've talked about mold throughout my entire career, especially this past week has been a crazy mold topic with the heat in the summer. Mold infection in the body can cause that stress response, which again is going to cause a crashing down of the secretory IgA. So in terms of what's actually going to improve it, we got to figure out what actually started the fire to begin with. Is there a thorn in your side? Do we have to remove that thorn to be able to reduce the inflammation, to be able to allow your immune system to boost back up? Now, there are ways to boost the immune system. That's where my protocols come into play. But the big thing is removing that stuff and then working on the stress response too. Now, when you're doing adrenal rhythms and trying to do adrenal work, it's tough to do it on anybody that hasn't been through puberty yet. So your best bet is going to be to go after the gut to try to improve whatever the conditions are down there versus the actual stress response. All right, so coming down on how to actually build up your secretory IgA. In my opinion, it's really easy. We kind of know all these things, but let's just put these things all together. All right, so if we know that stress or cortisol causes secretory IgA to go down, we need to do things to cause cortisol to go down so then secretory IgA has a chance to go back up, right? So what are some tips? What are some ways that we're actually able to eliminate stress? So one of the simplest ways to eliminate stress, I love it, to get adjusted. That's what I did all day yesterday. Okay, adjust. Takes stress off the body and allows our innate intelligence to be able to handle stress better than where we were previously. That's where a lot of people get up. Like, oh my gosh, I feel nice and loose. This is so good. I can get going. I can get moving. Oh my gosh. You can breathe in more oxygen. It means you're able to fight off more things, unless, of course, you put a mask on, in which case you can't breathe oxygen, but that's a whole different story. So an adjustment is one of the top ways for you to actually be able to boost your immune system, but also take stress off of your spinal column and stress off of your actual system, okay? Because we have these nerves that go through without getting too heady. You have the ability to be able to change your sympathetic tone based off your adjustments to basically bring you into rest and digest, which is that calm state, that melted state after you get adjusted. Okay? Number 2, avoid inflammatory foods. We all know this by now. I know a lot of people are stuck indoors or they're kind of bouncing back and forth, but the more inflammatory foods you eat, think every time you eat gluten, every time you eat dairy, you're causing stress to the body. So if you're trying to fight adrenal exhaustion, but you're putting things into your body that's going to cause adrenal exhaustion, you might as well just be spinning around in circles because you're a dog chasing its tail. So don't do that. So eat clean, okay? Eat clean. Get a teaspoon or so of fat per meal. Go after some healthy proteins, okay? There's different ways we can switch macros around based off of how stressed you are, but that's a different topic. But eat clean. Avoid the foods that you know you shouldn't have. And if you don't know what you shouldn't have, don't shop in the center aisles. Shop all the way around the outside of the store because anything on shelves has stuff in it to make it preserved for a longer period of time, which is typically going to be your carbs. Avoid them. Get your carbs from healthy veggies, okay? There are also going to be ways to work on this, which is meditation, all right? Anytime I bring up meditation, people think I have like a Buddha on me, and they're like, what are you talking about? Why would I meditate? Do you even meditate? Yeah, I do, because it calms our body down. There's research to show that it actually helps with our HPA axis, so it helps to calm down stress, helps to calm down perceived stress, and it helps to get us through tougher times because our brain, our subconscious mind can be active, and we can rewire it to be happy, healthy, and loving. It's true, okay? Watch what we're saying as well. If we're saying negative things, we're hostile, we're angry, we're yelling at people, that's going to cause more stress on the body. What you say to others is going to basically bounce back and go to you. Not the whole iron, rubber, or glue example, but it kind of does happen that way, okay? Things that we do as well, exercise. Everyone needs to exercise, even if it's just a little bit. Like we talked about last week, your safest way to exercise, just get outside and walk a little bit. Walk 20 minutes a day or go to the gym, go down to the Anytime Fitness down there. and go walk for just 20 minutes, okay? Just casually walk and just think happy thoughts and do whatever you want. Just don't have the TV on to the news, okay? That's going to be what's next. Avoid the freaking news. Avoid yelling at people on social media. I know that I have to practice what I preach as well, because I do get fired up when I see stupid stuff being posted. Cancel clear. But the more we're tuned into fear and fear and fear, which is obviously what we're being fed, the more our stress response is. Even if we're like, that doesn't matter, that's not true, we're still boosting up our level of stress, or boosting our stress exposure. So one of the top things I tell people to do, avoid the flipping news. Shut it off. You don't need to hear it. If the end of the world is coming, you'll find out. It's not the end of the world until it's the end of the world, okay? Then we have the stuff that I particularly do. So when you're talking about how do you build up secretory IgA, we have herbal supports, not just for the adrenal glands, but herbal supports for whatever we need to eliminate in the digestive tract. So if there are infections, if there's H. pylori, if there's mold, we're able to detox, pull, remove, whatever that is out of the body to allow your body to go back to normal. And, we've had a lot of success with this stuff too. Again, dealing with stress, OCD tendencies, bipolar tendencies. Really, you name it. Depression, anxiety. When you work on those adrenal glands, you really make a profound impact on the overall body physiology. So you feel good, you function better, everything feels better, you're happy, healthy, and whole, and that's just the best way to be. So those adaptogens or those herbal supports that you can take, but that is specific based off of your tests. So again, to answer the question on the secretory IgA, you have to figure out what the cause was to make it go low. Have somebody that you trust read those tests for you, and then you'll be able to build up a program really easily. And depending on where you are, it can take up to about a year or so to fix everything, more or less permanently to fix it. But you have to at least start somewhere, and that's the biggest thing. So my suggestion on how, again, the immune system impacts our health is that we need to focus on that one word, if you will, that's secretory IgA, or SIGA. All right, there's multiple words in there, but that SIGA. Focus on that guy. Focus on figuring out why that went low. Figure it out, boost it back up, reduce the stress in the body, and your body will heal. Okay? And that's what we need to be doing. We don't need to be waiting on a vaccine. We don't need to be waiting on some miracle cure. We need to start taking care of ourselves now. Even better, we should have been doing it years ago. But we've said this from the beginning, and a friend of mine kind of said this too, Chris Zano. We didn't, but you got caught with your pants down and you're ticked off about it. Like, oh my gosh, I've been unhealthy this entire time, and now the only reason I'm concerned about it is because somebody on the news told me I'm going to die. Well, if you do, it's because of your poor health decisions. And it's not to be callous, and I feel bad for those who have passed. I'm not insensitive to it. But most of the people who have passed already had weakened immune systems. They were already on, their deathbeds more or less. And really, to make it even more controversial, which might get this video pulled, basically anybody who had medical intervention died. I think people have a better success rate of coming out of this if they never even know that they have the virus to begin with. Fight it off naturally, and guess what? They're doing just fine. So there's people who are worried, oh my gosh, there's permanent lung damage, there's permanent this, there's permanent that. Well, where did they go? Did they go to the hospital? I'm just saying, again, not to be controversial, but let's kind of use our brains a little bit here. So my suggestions for you, if you're like, you know what, I don't want to be stressed out, I don't know what I need to do, what do I need to do? 2 tests you need to run. Adrenal stress profile, okay? And you need to run the GI map, or the stool test that we do. 2 of those together, 2 of those combined will allow you to be able to actually approach your health, fix your health, and allow you to be able to get back to where you need to be. In the meantime, do those simple things. Eat clean. Eat healthy, okay? If you need a diet to follow, to me, the healthiest is paleo autoimmune. Look it up. Eat that way. Find recipes that way. Exercise. Get 20 minutes of exercise a day, whether it's just walking or whatever it might be. 20 minutes, low intensity exercise until you figure out where you are in your adrenal stress response. If you're doing good, then we can boost you into like a normal workout profile. So eating clean, exercising, drinking water, avoiding inflammatory foods. It's going to be huge. And then get tested and start meditating. That's really the best things I could tell for you guys to do. So that being said, I mean, like I said last week, there's so many things that we can do. There's so many things being thrown at us that there's only one thing that we can control. It's our health. We have the ability to be able to control our health. And with that, I want to empower you guys to all take control of your health, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And until you do, you're constantly going to be living in the state of fear of what might happen next. Because remember, 10 weeks, 10 months, 10 years from now, if we still have a crappy, terrible immune system, we can end up with something. I'm not even worried about the coronavirus. We can end up with some life-threatening bacterial infection or some sort of infection, cancer, or heart disease. Stress causes heart disease, if you will, or stress causes heart attacks. Why? It breaks us down, literally. Take care of yourself starting now, so that way you have confidence of where your health is going into the future. And so with that, I'm going to leave you guys for today. So thank you all for tuning in. Like this as usual. Share this as usual if you found this information useful. And then obviously if you want to run those tests, reach out to us at our office. Okay, call 412-828-6000. Or if you just want to go to drjockmoser.com. If you don't know how to spell my name, Dr. Jock is right there. So go to that, admoser.com, and you can look at our website and you'll be able to fill out a free 15-minute health evaluation to see if you are a good fit for a patient in our office. So that being said, have an awesome weekend, everyone. Hope you all stay healthy, hope you all stay happy, and I hope you all stay stress-free. Thanks, guys.